Do you ever sit and go to stand up and all of a sudden you feel like your hips have aged 20 years or your back really starts aching? Like you're sitting for an hour or two focused on something, probably if it's at a computer, leaning forward, and then you go to stand up and you can't do it? Maybe you have to straighten yourself like really slowly. Like, it feels so uncomfortable and the first few steps are stiff. Or maybe your back doesn't actually start hurting until you start walking around again. It's a really interesting phenomenon, and a lot of us have it. Most people immediately think there's something wrong with my back. It's tight and I have to stretch it. But what if your back isn't actually where the pain is starting? The pattern's beginning somewhere else, and no matter how much you stretch it, it doesn't fix it. What if your low back is trying to give you movement and compensate for what your hips aren't actually doing? That's what I want to show you today. It's pretty common. I see it in my clinic a lot. By the end of this video, I want you to understand the relationship between sitting, your hips, your pelvic basin, and your low back. And then I want to show a simple movement you can try to kind of enter in and figure out where your lower body is with all this. So the next time you stand up after sitting for a long while, you have something to do about it. Not force your back to loosen, but to see whether your hips, if they have a little more movement, changes what your back is required to do. Hi, I'm Dr. Melanie Carlone. I'm a physical therapist. I'm a somatic healer. I've been doing this for almost 4 decades. And on this channel, I really love us to look at pain a little bit differently. Instead of automatically chasing and going right to where you think the pain is and the place that hurts, I want to bring understanding about patterns. Patterns your body may be using to help you do what you need to do, but then the pain arises. Because pain in one area is often connected to movement or lack of movement somewhere else. And your low back and hips are a perfect example. They're such a crazy complex unit. So when you're sitting, your hips spend a lot of time in flexion, right? You're sitting. So here's my little guy. These represent the femurs, and your thighs are essentially folded out in front of you towards your torso. And there's nothing wrong with that position, but the hip flexor, the psoas you may have heard of, attaching to the back and here in the pelvic basin and then attaching down to this little bump is in a shortened position, and then you're moving it. So the problem isn't sitting necessarily, but it's being in that position for a really long time and not moving. And this is the challenge that we can meet with a little attention. Because over time, your hip flexors, you're sitting, you're moving, you're leaning, they shorten. They're constantly contracting. They're trying to help you be strong and sitting. Your body's only ever always trying to help you. Research has found an association between prolonged sitting and being unable to extend your hip, reduced passive hip extension. That's the ability of the leg to move behind you. So it doesn't mean that you permanently have short hip flexors, or even that it automatically causes back pain. But it does show your body adapts to positions you spend a lot of time in. So start to pay attention. Tune in. What positions are you holding? So imagine you've been sitting at your computer now for 2 hours, really common for me. And then you go to stand up to just stand tall and walk normally. Your hips have to move out of that flex position. The fascia and the muscles have to give into extension as your leg goes behind you to try to push you forward. But what happens if that movement isn't readily available? Like your brain's not connecting to it, your body isn't able to do it? Your body still has to get you upright. You're standing up to move. Something has to give. Often that's your low back. It wants to help. So here's the part I want you to remember. Your low back may feel tight. You may feel nothing in your hips at all, but it may be tight and painful because it's doing too much, not because it needs to be stretched more. You want to tune in and actually see what's going on in that back. Your hips, your pelvis, and your lumbar spine do not operate as separate pieces. Here's a beautiful illustration out of Tom's Meyer book. If you pause for a minute to just look and feel inside, this is the viscera. If you take all of this is the body cavity if you take all the viscera out. So these are the muscles on the front of your back. They coordinate the movement all here through the pelvis, and they work as a unit. Taking out the intestines, the liver, the gallbladder, all that stuff, you're going to see there's muscles running right at the front of the spine and these deep hip flexors that work with your adductors. So when you've been sitting bent, these shorten. Now when you go to stand up, if those are shortened, they want to move the back to get extension. So let's talk about that a little more. Movement has to be distributed across the whole region of the body. It's not isolated. In studies, people with chronic low back pain, they share movement between the lumbar spine, the hips, and the pelvis differently from those without pain. They don't have the same awareness internally. There's differences in hip mobility and muscle function. In some people with low back pain, there can be lots of causes of low back pain, but this is pretty common. So that doesn't mean that every painful back is caused by a hip problem, but it's often overlooked. Just the same way that hip problems often have an origin in the back and is overlooked. So stop looking at things in isolation. All right, let me show you. What can this look like? Stand up for a moment, put your hands around your waist, and gently move your pelvis forward. Don't really think about it. Just move your pelvis forward and notice what happens. You're going to arch your low back naturally. You see the curve forming in the low back? It is like extension, right? So I go backwards, I put my hip forwards, my back arches. Did your thigh actually travel behind your pelvis, or do you mostly hinge backwards through your back? Those are really different things. And your body is amazingly good at finding ways to accomplish a movement. So that's compensation. And compensation isn't necessarily bad. It's totally useful. Your body's adapting to the patterns and what you're constantly asking it to do. But if one area has to always provide movement or stability that another area isn't contributing very well, you're going to probably start to notice tension, fatigue, discomfort, bones, things start wearing out. So that's why when it hurts, immediately stretching the low back doesn't always solve that stiff feeling after sitting. You may get temporary relief, but it doesn't seem to last. And there's nothing wrong with that. You can stretch it, but think about what is your body actually asking for? If you've just spent hours with your hips flexed, your thighs brought up towards your torso, and then you go to stand up and you want your body to open up in the hips and move in the opposite direction, your hips don't smoothly transition into extension very often, and your low back is extending to help you. And you find that upright position by overextending. So again, if you've been sitting for a long time with your hips flexed, that psoas muscle that comes off the spine and sits here in the pelvic basin, big thick muscle comes down, attaches onto this bone. That's what flexes the hip. So as you've been sitting, you're constantly pulling, moving in to that position. Now you go to stand up, but think like a rubber band from here to here. If that's short, you're not going to be able to extend your hip backwards. You're going to arch your back to stand upright. Does that make sense? It's a really important distinction that you want to make. So when you stand up, if you don't feel those hips going behind you, your back is arching to accomplish that. So the question is, can your hips move behind you without your back having to move first, or to move in a more coordinated fashion? That's really the interesting question. So if these kinds of connections and thinking are useful to you, subscribe to this channel, because that's what I'm here to explore. It's not simply where something hurts. It's thinking about how everything fits together and what your body may be doing that helps explain why it hurts and what you can do about it. It's really important. All right. So let's do a little experiment, and this should feel gentle. You're not going to hack your way into fully open hips. So it's not trying to force a big stretch. If anything produces sharp pain, numbness, or tingling, you may have a disc issue, you may have nerve, there's all kinds of things. So any increasing symptoms, just stop, but just try this, okay? So I'm gonna have you stand near a wall or chair, and if you want something for balance, and I want you to take your foot, okay, and slide it behind you. Keep the heel lifted, and put one hand over the front of your thigh. And then the other hand, let's put it on the sacrum. Now, ordinarily, to get that leg to go back, you're going to feel your back arch. Today, I want you to pull your belly button in, tuck your tail, so let this hand push forward. You're going to rotate the pelvis backwards and feel what happens in the front of the thigh. That is a true hip flexor stretch. Okay, again, foot behind you, tuck your tail, feel that thigh go backwards, and get the opening in the front of the thigh. Then bonus point, put the top of the foot on the ground. Now you're going to feel that whole line in the front of the leg when you tuck your tail, really talk to you. Press into it for a moment and then softly release. The somatic approach. Press 4 or 5 times. Tucking your tail, press top of the foot, softly, slowly release. And again, tuck and release. And then go ahead and do the other side. Let the foot come behind you, hand on your thigh, your pelvis, tuck, and feel the top of the foot. I think is a really good bonus, but not if it's painful. Otherwise, just on your toes, keep your heel lifted, and tuck and lean. See if you can start to have an experience with your hips, right? Now, bring both feet under you and take a walk. Just a little bit. Walk slowly. Don't try to walk differently. Just notice. Does your hip move more freely behind you? Does standing upright feel easier? You may notice that you feel grounded down, but lifted upwards. Does your low back feel a little bit different? That's really good, useful information that the body's memory wants to experience. Remember, this is an experiment. It's not a diagnosis, but it's a way of entering into relationship with your body. So take one more walk if you're not doing it, and imagine the leg moving behind you, pushing the foot behind you, rather than creating that movement by arching your low back. Keep it subtle. Walking, planting your foot, letting the leg move behind you. As your spine is long, your back's not compressing. And what do you notice? Because sometimes the place that feels tight, that chronic pain in your back always compressing, it's not asking for more stretching. It may be inviting another part of your body to start participating again if you notice it. And this brings me to something else pretty important. You probably don't need the perfect chair. Sometimes we spend all this time and energy trying to get it just right. What you really need is not to be in one rigid or correct posture all day long. Your body generally doesn't love at all being asked to remain static. I mean, think about it. Millions of years of evolution were designed to walk for long periods, bursts of intense activity, and lots of rest. Almost nothing that we get in today's modern life. It's outrageous. And research on sitting and low back pain increasingly points towards sitting behavior. Longer sitting periods, not paying attention to the body, fewer breaks, being really static, just moving your eyes and your hands. All of that's part of the picture. So rather than trying to get it all right with perfect posture, try to introduce variability. Stand up, walk around for a minute, change your position. Another great one, cross body crawl. A really great way to soften the nervous system. Cross the body. Let the spine move. Breathe. Open. Cross. Feel your body. Maintain that length upwards and downwards. Let your hips extend. Move your pelvis in circles. Tuck your tail. Breathe deeply, moving all the viscera up and down. It's crazy. When you start giving your body different options throughout the day, that variability keeps the nervous system flexible and you more resilient. Far more useful than trying to hold yourself in a supposedly perfect position with a perfect chair for 8 hours. It's not how we're designed. So set your alarm, stand up at least every hour, 45 minutes if you can. And if your low back is hurting when you stand after sitting, Don't automatically assume the back is the problem. Think about the whole picture, how we're designed to be one whole unit, and give everything the opportunity to move. If your pelvis has been relatively still and suddenly you want your whole system to stand up, extend, and walk, your low back may simply be like, I can't do it. For it to participate in that transition, you have to involve all of the musculature and the bones. So instead of immediately pulling or stretching or forcing any painful area, see what happens when you look above and below and start to restore movement. Your body is constantly adapting to what you ask it to do. And sometimes changing that conversation with your body is far more useful than fighting any symptom. You start to feel like you're at cause in your body rather than a victim. So try that little hip movement the next time you've been sitting for a while and let me know in the comments. Did sitting or walking feel different afterwards when you moved your hip or stretched the top of your foot? And if you know someone who gets that familiar stiff back feeling, go ahead and share this. Every time you get out of your office chair or your car, think about what you can do. Hear me in your head. Move that pelvis. Like, subscribe, do the whole thing, and I'll see you next time on why it hurts and how to heal. And most of all, be compassionate with yourself. Be kind to your body. Give it a voice. And keep listening to what is it trying to tell you. It'll thank you. Bye, you guys. See you later.